Right, I'm going to start with the intro, and then James can do a proper intro.
Okay.
Hello, we're doing a podcast, me and them.
I mean, how do I improve on that? That's
By
just the
literally
best.
doing anything.
Do you want me to do a proper one now?
Do what you want.
I mean, I don't think we need to. People know that they're watching the Open Channel podcast.
Exactly.
People know that the Open Channel podcast is with myself, James Henshaw from Vice Press, Matt Ferguson, and Florey. So
Yeah.
I think they know.
They bloody better know. If you're listening to this and you've not listened before, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
This is
You
an
know what was
absolute
nice?
shambles. Well, look, okay, here it is for everyone, right? I'm really sick, so I said, can one of you peanuts do the intro? And now neither of them have done the intro. So welcome back to another episode of Vice Press Open Channel. We're to get together to chat about things we've done, things we've made, Planet of the Apes films, whatever I usually say. I'm Florey. That's Matt Ferguson. And that's James Henshaw.
Hello.
And now go. I bow out.
Don't you feel much better though for doing that and forcing yourself to kind of push through the illness?
You know what's actually really annoying is that it's the most natural one that I've ever done.
It's when you don't want to do it, you don't care.
One take.
Goodness me.
I was going to say something then and I forgot. Oh, we did a thing. Me and Matt did a thing. Well, Matt did a thing. I just tagged along as his companion James.
No, you
yeah.
were my what's it called? Support, James.
Support James. Yeah.
We did like a golden retriever or something.
Yeah, because lots of kids have those nowadays, don't they? Like dogs that keep them happy.
Emotional support James.
Emotional support, James. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you did a signing at Cineworld in Sheffield for the Phantom Menace, which was good. You know, all of that for you, which was nice. Lots of people, blah blah blah. But what I was surprised about was the amount of people that said that they listened to the podcast. Now, by my maths, half the people that listened to the podcast came to your.
I don't know how that works because there's not that many people seem to listen. But there you are. Oh, it's crazy. Like somebody had come from China. This guy was like, "I've come from China."
Yeah.
I was like, "What?"
Had he come from China for this though, or he just come from China at some point?
It wasn't clear. He could be a student, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because then he messaged me on Instagram and said that, like how amazing it was, and that, but then it rained and their posters got damaged.
Oh no.
But I said, "Oh, I can send you some more. Don't worry." And then he said, "You've moved me to tears." Which was nice. I think that was probably just exaggeration in the messages, but it was nice that that person came when I signed the stuff. A lot more than usual. People were like, "Can you sign it to Sue? Can you sign it to little Mickey and all that sort of stuff?" You know, those weren't names that people said, but you know,
yeah, it was really nice.
And like a few people like, "Sign it big at the top. Sign it big at the top." I was like, "Okay." Oh,
it was
sign over George Lucas's name.
Hang on a sec, sorry.
That's all right. I was going to say it was really nice to kind of go and the amount of people that were there, but also what was kind of without blowing too much smoke up his arse is that how good he's gotten at doing these things and actually chatting to folks and kind of giving them the kind of their moment and having a bit of a.
Well, that's it.
It was there was really good interaction. I think he kind of kept that Matt Ferguson brand, but also kind of folks were like, oh, "It's really nice," and he kind of had a good old chin wagging conversation.
Well, you see, what I do is I switch it on. Like the last one I did. The last one I did, my mum and dad came, and they were sat by the side because it's like in a sort of they clear out the bar area, and my mum was like, "I've never seen you like that before in your life." Like you were talking to people and being conversational. I was like, "Mum, I was working."
Yeah,
they've come to see me specifically. You can't.
He
disappoint
says this,
these people.
right?
You can't disappoint them.
He says this, but I think having
My
been
mother
around
said
you,
that to me.
Yeah, having been around you though a few times, I think it is. Yes, it is partially that because anyone that has to do like a public thing does have to turn it on. You've got to smack yourself around a couple of times and sort of get yourself going. But also, I think you kind of get energy off these people for a bit. There's a limit, as with any introverted person, but I've seen it. It picks you up a bit. I think, especially when it's a positive thing like that.
Yeah, it is.
What's going on? You're being
God.
attacked by some sort of
It's the cat.
panther. I know
She
it's
was
the
crying at the door.
But the other good
so
thing,
I let her
this
in.
is a week. This is a week of
She's
us kind of
gonna scratch
giving
my
Matt
face in a second.
plaudits, I guess, because the other really cool thing that happened, we all listen to the Weekly Planet podcast, which is a very good podcast. And Matt was mentioned on there, which I thought which is very surreal. Like for somebody that listens to a podcast that they like, that you listen to it because it's kind of got nothing to do with your work and what you do, and it's just kind of thing. And then somebody that you kind of work with and know, they pop up and talk about them in quite a flattering way. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ! I'm in the shower listening to a podcast that I like to escape the world, and I can't get rid of it.
I think basically what happened was that last week or the last 2 weeks was the Phantom Menace stuff really connected, like even more so than the Jedi and other stuff I've done before. And it was every other thing was that for a few days. So it was all pervasive. And then, so like say, even on our podcast I listened to about films, they mentioned me, and I was just like, yep, that one really did strike a chord.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's because my theory is not only is the poster good, we know this, but I think the prequel kids, we've seen this with other stuff like the Clone Wars stuff being brought into live action, people popping off for that. But the kids that grew up with the prequels are now of age, obviously, but they haven't had everything. They haven't had as many re-releases and chances to see their Star Wars in cinema or have a really cool poster made for it and all that sort of stuff.
It's
it just doesn't get done.
It's taken on that next generation. So, like a sizable amount of the people at the signing had their kids with them.
Yeah.
So there was this guy, and he must have been maybe 30. He could have been younger, and he had like a little sort of 5-6-year-old lad, and he was like, "This was my favorite movie as a kid, and now I'm showing him it." And it's just like,
it's
Jesus. You're having kids too young, people. What are you doing?
You're right. No, the thing is, you're right, though, aren't you? Because, like what you were saying, Florey, it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're all at the age, like, there's that kind of 35 to 35, maybe even younger, like 30 to 45-year-old bracket that Phantom Menace sat within when it was released. They're all the kind of kids now. They're all the guys now that families now, women, ladies, whatever, that are having kids and they loved it. They grew up with it. So they're introducing their kids to Star Wars and taking them to see it. And there's all the new things. But also, if you think about when we got into Star Wars, when we were taken to see Phantom Menace, it was because our parents had been to see the originals 25 years prior to that. So it's kind of a nice little thing that's kind of, it's coming down. Each generation has their own Star Wars to a degree. But also, going back to what you were saying, Matt, about how it's become so pervasive and getting about online, is that also the age, you got to think of the age bracket where Phantom Menace really sits and resonates with. They're the people that are on, again, like our age, that are sat on the internet all day, every day, and posting and thingy. And so it's going to, I think that's one of the reasons why it probably was more visible, but it's really cool. I think the whole thing about this is kind of, it's not my favorite Star Wars film. It's probably not in my top 3, but it's definitely not in my top 3. But there's been something, but there was undeniably something like magical around it.
Yeah, well, I took little Ferg to see it on Sunday, and she didn't want to leave. She didn't want to go need the toilet or get up or anything. She sat through the whole movie, which shows that it was good. She really, really likes Jar Jar Binks and Boss Nass as well. She really likes. She likes that sort of weird stuff, But like afterwards, I guess she didn't catch early on when they said Obi-Wan, because it's like a bit. I think it's when he meets Anakin. He says, "Oh, Obi-Wan Kenobi meet Anakin." She went, "Obi-Wan Kenobi," because she's seen A New Hope, and I was like, "Yeah, that's him when he was young." And she was like, "Ah." So then she was following that aspect of it. She doesn't know who Anakin's going to be because she's just not put that together. Yeah. And then at the end, when they had the fight, she was just like really into it. And then afterwards, I said, "Did you like that?" She said, "Yeah." I was like, "What's your favourite bit?" She went, "When Obi-Wan got so mad, he chopped that man in half." I was like, "Yes, he did chop that man in half." She loved it. She was like, "Take that, you jerk." It was awesome because it's quite shocking, like for a kid, because you like Liam Neeson, don't you? And so it's quite like, ooh.
One of my greatest parenting achievements is that I managed to make it so that the kids saw the "I am your father" reveal, like they knew it. They didn't know it before the film. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And just like to do the whole like, it's coming up, so you're just like watching them watch it.
Yeah,
hey?
Yeah.
You did. I was doing that in the cinema. I was watching, looking at her, and just like the stuff that was landing, and then stuff that didn't, like when they were in the Senate.
Yeah,
starts going like this with the chair.
Yeah,
bloody hell, they have like 5 meetings for some reason after the pod race and before it kicks off at the end. I guess they're telling the story, but it kills it dead for a bit, and then it.
Could have benefited from a little bit more.
Ending is really good on Phantom Menace. Actually, I really liked it.
Yeah,
so
there we go. Movie.
Yeah, good movie. 10 stars.
I mean, you know what? It gets 10 stars. Yeah, it's the best with the prequels, I think.
Yeah,
got good stuff.
110%.
And like in the cinema on the big screen, you can appreciate all the models and stuff. And it's not just CG. There's a lot of obviously location work, but the model stuff is really good in it as well.
Don't you find it weird? Like now looking back, I think it's kind of unanimously decided that now in retrospect, Phantom Menace is probably the best of those 3. But at the time, like Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith were very much like.
I think a lot of people still like Revenge of the Sith best.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Okay. Because they were very much positioned as, we're trying to, this is better than Phantom Menace, we promise you. And it's like, okay.
The thing with Revenge of the Sith is it does sort of stick the landing. It does. So then as a 3, as a trilogy, it does hold together because it does stick it. It gets there.
Yeah.
So I've not got anything against them. There's
a
different story and it makes sense and it's not like all over the place. It's just like George Lucas was a bit older, so it's a slightly slower pace. Those films are quite they're paced differently to the old Star Wars.
Yeah. Movies. Would you say you prefer those original prequels to the 3 new sequels? In
terms of the overall story, I think the story is more solid.
Yeah,
but I like them. I like them all for different reasons. Someone said like, pick one. It was going around on Twitter, and I said I refuse because you have to have all 3 really for the story to work in each trilogy. So
yeah,
there's not a single thing in the entire prequel trilogy that is better than any single thing in The Last Jedi. Blanket statement.
The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi is a really, really good movie, but I can understand how it sort of
divisive
because it does things that are unexpected. I like stuff to be unexpected personally. I like to be challenged, and I like the fact that they didn't go the easy route with Luke or any of that crap. But
now I made a very, very big statement there. And I am currently rewinding all of that in my head, right? But what I mean to say is, I think that the filmmaking and the acting and every aspect of it, and even Force Awakens as well, they're just better made films. You don't have to like them as much. The thing
I think that the prequels have over all the other Star Wars, let's talk about positives, is I think the production design is better in the prequels than in any of the other Star Wars movies, personally.
What it gets right,
think it's beautiful to look at.
I agree, and that's why the Phantom Menace stands out the most, because it has all of the Naboo stuff, and it's so different, right? And the problem with that is I think that's part of why everyone poo-pooed it when they first saw it, because it was a 180 turn. Well, everything we'd seen of Star Wars at that point was gritty and shitty, and you look like they just bang these starships together, and you're in a rebellion. Yeah, and then it comes out and there's like brand new like Royal Starfighter ship things and like all this stuff that actually works. But coupled with shit that's still broken and droids that can't do what they're supposed to do, which is great. But I think that's all the stuff that you look at it now once you're 25 years removed, and that's what really makes it sing. It's the stuff we should have been more worried about was the fact that it all hinged on a trade embargo war thing.
Yeah.
So weird.
It's very strange, isn't it? But
I like the robots. Martha like when they go Roger Roger. I mean, that sort of stuff we think was goofy, but like kids love it. She was eating it.
It gets it, doesn't it? It understands it's a kids' film. He's making a kids' film. That it's for kids. It does it.
Hoodsucker proxy.
Yeah.
Kids.
For kids. I love that film.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, speaking of old sci-fi things.
Oh, where's the segue?
He's still got it. He's still fucking got it. I tell you what.
Before we kick off into it, right? I saw because I've tweeted a little bit about it. Somebody said, "Do you know that you can watch those original 4 or 5 in pretty much any order? And
Okay,
it'll work because of the time stuff.
Yeah,
because obviously they go back in time, but then they set off the future. And I was like,
so what? Like, let's tell it. We're talking about the Planet of the Apes,
the original 68.
Tim Burton's The Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. So there's 10 of these movies now, right? With the new one and counting the remake, which is nuts. I didn't realize there was this many. Did anyone else know there was that many?
Me, no, because I'm a long-time fan. So.
Long time fan.
Right, let's do the thing I usually make us do, that so that we start off from a point where everyone that's listening to this knows where we're coming from. What's your history with Planet of the Apes, Matthew?
I watched it when I was similar sort of age to Star Wars as a kid because my dad liked sci-fi, so that was on a lot. It's like Forbidden Planet and movies like that I used to watch a lot as a kid, and Planet of the Apes is up there. I can remember my dad showing it us and going, just wait till the end, it's walking, talking apes. It's just such a cool concept, and they work even in the 68 one because the makeup's really good. So, I love it. That's why.
James,
the TV series, the short-lived TV series, I would say back in the early 90s, late 80s.
It was on rerun, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, they were kind of BBC Two over here in the UK used to have some absolute bangers on a Friday evening. So this was before they got Simpsons. So pre-Simpsons BBC, it used to be either Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, or Stingray. And then it used to be Planet of the Apes or The Prisoner or something like that. Yeah. And it was so it was the TV series that kind of got me into that, watching that at my grandparents, and so that was, I don't think, but the first Planet of the Apes film that I watched in full was Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, because I'm a massive Tim Burton's fan. So I'd never watched the film. I think I was watching these, and we'll come on to you in a minute. I'm not going to skip ahead. You can tell us, Florey. But when I sat and watched these first two, it was the first. Honestly, I think
you've not watched the third one.
No, I've not watched the third one yet because I ran out of time.
It's like my favourite. It's the best one.
It was the first time that I think I'd sat and watched these films all the way through. So that's my history.
Yeah, I'm similar to Matt, but not to the same extent. I think I watched he showed me the first one, the only one I'd ever seen until this week, but I've seen it probably, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 times or something.
Yeah.
It's just one of those, it's just like an easy, quick watch with this insane man running around, either not being able to talk or talking way too much.
He's so angry as well, Charlton Heston.
Oh, furious.
He's so angry. I love how it starts as well, and he's just like smoking in the spaceship.
Bag on in the cabin.
Yeah. And they land and they're like, "Hey Taylor, why are you such a fucking prick?" and he's like, "Because everything sucks, mate." And I'm like,
"It's that
gif, maybe I'm with
gif
it."
Of him laughing with a really cool pan, and that's what
so
he's actually
weird.
laughing at is the other guy like putting the flag down because he's just like, everyone's dead because it was 2,000 years. You know,
You stupid man.
it's just
Oh
brilliant.
God.
Charlton Heston always plays absolute pricks, doesn't he?
Well, I think
Because
he
he
wasn't
is a
actually,
prick.
but the thing is he is
NRA, mate.
such
Yeah.
a screen presence, and he obviously knew how to pick good movies. Because obviously, like Ten Commandments is an amazing film. Ben-Hur is just incredible.
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes, and then you got crazy
Soylent
70s
Green.
ones like Soylent Green and the Omega Man and stuff. And he's not really a good actor, but he's one of those where his persona is so magnetic, and he just says cool shit. And
it's like the Sean Connery effect, isn't it? He's like him and Sean Connery are
Old
kind
school.
of in that same bracket. But I didn't. So I looked this up because I was like, this dude must be getting on a bit in this film because he's in his mid-40s. He's like 47.
Yeah, he didn't get famous. He didn't get famous until later in life compared to most Hollywood people.
Yeah, he was in good shape for his age, I think.
I mean, that's the thing. They're all like rake thin and walking around in loincloths. And I'm like, you absolute bastard. How old are you? Because that's the thing, that he's from the neck down, very young. Good job, Charlton. From the neck up. This motherfucker, is he 68? Well,
it's all the smoking and drinking, isn't it?
Yeah,
you find yourself thinking like nowadays, like it would have to be super buff, and for the scenes where he was shirtless, he'd be pumping out, like Hemsworth style, and it's just not realistic. And he's just sort of realistically very athletic and fit, but not.
Well, he's an astronaut,
ripped.
Isn't he, for a start? So it kind of fits with his character that he's athletic and whatever.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
It's
just like it just looks. It's good. It's just good.
It all works. Yeah. It's perfect.
Great music. Great.
So
everything.
There was a couple of things that I noted about this before we kind of get into spoilers for a 50-year-old film. But like,
I think the statute of limitations is up now. I think we can just go. We can go full in on Planet of the Apes.
But
it was
Dr. Zaius.
I think I text both of you and said they don't make films like this anymore. No. And I didn't mean that like with any hyperbole. They literally don't make films like this anymore. So now I was talking to Ryan, my hairdresser, yesterday. I was like, what's kind of been interesting about this, kind of watching The Shining, watching Planet of the Apes, watching like a bunch of older stuff, is just they're an hour and a half long. They're given time to. The storylines are relatively simple. They don't cram too much in, and they just have time to breathe. Like the amount of shots that are just establishing shots, like establishing scenery, or watching a thingy land, or just looking over the landscape into the Forbidden Zone, and you've got like the kind of scarecrow things. There's no. But the pace, it's not at the expense of the pacing, because the pacing is still works. And I think modern film, they're made differently now. Because
well, they're much more. There was less sort of. We need to have this to appeal to these people, and this to appeal to those kids, and this joke to do that. It was obviously much more laser focused on what they wanted to say with the story, which was the topsy turvy, the way people can be mistreated, all that sort of stuff. And it's just so economical and just done. Like this is the story, we're telling it, and it's finished, and this is the point we want to make. And then they put it out there, and it became. It's like why I like John Carpenter, because John Carpenter movies are like that. They're just like Halloween. This is the guy. He's killing the people. They've got to survive. Done.
I think, Who do you think the last filmmaker to do that is then? I think when I was thinking about it myself, I was like, the person that sprang to mind was probably Steven Spielberg, but even he doesn't do that anymore.
No.
Like, you could argue Quentin Tarantino.
I think Matt Reeves is one that I think is a bit like that. I know it's funny because he did those Planet of the Apes movies, and they are bigger and they are more complicated, but his films are very much thematic. It's like the Batman is like very focused on what it wants to say about being Batman and whether he should be a scary man or somebody for normal people to like look up to as a hero. That's what it wants to say, and then it's got dressing on top. So Matt Reeves comes close, I think.
As with most things, I find movies that feel more like these older films. You don't find much like that anymore, except for in horror films. Let's say
Yeah,
all the
horror
time.
films. Are
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
It's
Wes
because
Anderson
they
as
have
well.
to. Yeah, maybe you have to, but they have to come up. You know, that's how you get those films made. It's like you can do it for $1 million or $2 million. You can do it with a cast of 3 people, whatever it is, and that's where I think it feels a bit throwback. Like, what did we watch the other night? I watched Ready or Not, the one where the bird gets married into the billionaire family and they play hide and seek and they're going to kill her. And it's just such like, it's like super tight. It goes for 90 minutes. It's got only a few people in it who are really good. And that sort of like, it may look relatively modern, but it feels, more like something they would have done back then. But I don't know about directors so much. It's more just sort of genres of film that feel that way to me.
Yeah.
Big movies in general aren't like that because they're spending so much money, and they obviously do a lot of focus testing and so on nowadays. And it's like a miracle when one comes out, like say a Dune, that is just like a singular vision, and he didn't probably have to listen to anybody.
No.
It's like a miracle. I'm not against movies like that because obviously, like most of the Marvel movies are probably made in that way, and I like 99% of the Marvel movies / love them. So it's just different, isn't it? But it's something to be said for a 90-minute movie. Those Apes movies. I mean, I watched them in a couple of days. I loved them, and they're just bonkers. They were just like, oh, in this second one, let's just have like some crazy skinless people that worship a bomb.
Yeah,
with telekinetic powers.
So I watched the first 3, right? Having seen the first one a bunch of times, I still rewatched it because
the fourth one.
This is where this is
so amazing.
If no one remembers, the reason that we've done this is because we were like, right, we need to have a film we've all watched to have something to talk about to anchor the podcast, right? So instead of that, we've just talked about whatever the fuck else we talked about for 30 minutes, and now we're on to this. But besides, we put a poll on Twitter, right, or something?
Yeah.
Somewhere, poll, and you lot said we had to watch the first one. So what we've done is got overexcited, and we've watched most of them anyway.
I've watched 5. The 5th one's not great, but
I watched 3.
Yeah.
What did you watch, James? The 2.
I watched Planet of the Apes. I watched Planet of the Apes. The Tim Burton one. I did watch.
I watched 4.
I didn't watch. I can't watch the Tim Burton one. I hate it. So Beneath is great, but it's weird because it's not got Charlton Heston in it. Even though they just were like, let's get. It's like that. The
same man.
We've got. Mum says we've got Charlton Heston at home. That's Charlton Heston at home, isn't it? You know, it's really.
It was absolutely wild how much that man at a glance looked and behaved.
Well, like when Nova first sees him, she's like, huh? And it does the cuts.
Yeah.
And she's like, is that the same? And she's like, I can't.
They must have done it on purpose, right? They're not trying to fool, because he's in it as well. It's not, they're both in it, so they're not trying to fool anyone. It's just a really bizarre.
I think he only agreed to do it if he didn't have to like work as much because he was such a big star and they couldn't afford him. And I think he got the bomb. I think Charlton Heston was like, I want to set the bomb off.
Yeah.
Well, in the first one, it's because he's running around in a desert for probably 2 months with no clothes on. Yeah. So as if you wouldn't want to do that again, like straight away. Because what's a couple of years after, right?
It's like the next year they did it like straight off.
I
love that they used to do that stuff, and they just rip in. They're like, right.
Well, they're like, we've got the sets, we've got the makeup, let's go.
Yeah.
Just bang through. You're right, Matt. I was doing a bit of research into that because I was like, huh? And it's why they had the extended thing at the beginning, so that there was more Heston screen time, but they didn't have to kind of do stuff.
They just used footage from the last one, didn't they?
Yeah, he didn't want to do it, and then he only wanted money. He only wanted to do it if he was in it and got more money and died, but he only worked for so long and whatever. So
it's awesome because he gets to blow up the planet.
Yeah, but it was Spike. They cast that other dude in Spike because they were like, well, because Charlton Heston was fairly confident that they couldn't carry the films with
well, it is weaker because obviously it's not got Roddy as Cornelius either, and the guy they've got playing Cornelius isn't as good as Roddy McDowall.
No,
but didn't Roddy McDowall play a different character? Because Roddy McDowall's in more Apes than he's in most of the Apes films.
He's used obviously in the opening footage, which is taken from the first movie, but then it's a different person. But then he's back in the third one,
Yeah.
And then he plays Caesar, which is his son as well, with just different makeup. So the third one, when they go back in time and they have the baby, is just
absolutely fucking crazy.
70s awesome, because they turn up and they just it's so I just love it.
So
I feel like we shouldn't spoil these like sequels because no one's seen
they just say we just got in the spaceship and left and then we're here. That's all. That's it. They don't really explain it. They just say we did it.
I thought it was going to be. I was actually fine with the explanation. Like I was like, go on then. This is going to be stupid. This is obviously where they lose it, right? And it is, but it's also really not. Like it's
they
actually
say it with
still
confidence, and then the ape that came up with it gets killed by a gorilla straight away after, so it doesn't have to do any more explaining.
That was interesting. I'll put it that way. That was interesting.
They're giving them bananas. I don't like bananas.
Oh, that's the whole thing. Anyway, that I think overall, the thing that I've come away with is that I am shocked that the Planet of the Apes series is most likely the most successful film franchise of all time when you talk about the level at which they like how good they all are. Yeah. Because there's obviously Tim Burton's which I watched was a nightmare. I don't know what to say about it. Like I really fucking hated it. Yeah, it's just a really, really bad, ill-conceived film. Marky Mark is a wooden plank that looks terrified the entire time, but also is not emoting at all. So like, it's
that was his
strange.
First big blockbuster as well.
I think
wasn't
so.
It? And he didn't really.
He's out of his depth for sure. He doesn't carry the film, but there's also nothing for him to, really, like. There's no meat for him to get into. None of it really makes any sense. None of it is held together. None of it's interesting at all. The one saving grace is maybe the Stan Winston, like the actual makeup itself and the suits, but they can't move in them. So they can't move in them. So they do this weird shit where like every now and then one of them will just fucking fly up to the ceiling on wires and like jump around for a while. So they like put some out. It doesn't make for good film.
For Roddy McDowall's performance as Cornelius, because he is so convincingly ape-like, but not just an ape. It's not like the new ones, which are like very realistic ape. It's sort of like an evolved ape. But like the way he moves and the way he looks, his eyes, because they do lots of great close-ups of the eyes in the Apes movies as well. Really good.
And at some point, they obviously realised
has got Ricardo Montalban in it.
Yeah,
it does.
I
was like, when's he coming in? Right,
he's in the fourth one quite a lot, and the fourth one is amazing. So basically, it's further in the future. There was a virus, and it killed all the cats and dogs. So the humans were like, we need different pets. So they decided to get the chimps and stuff as pets. But then they realised that these chimps are smarter than the cats and dogs, and they can get them to bring them drinks and stuff.
Yeah,
this
is the explanation of the Planet of the Apes, which is I found. I was never sure completely if I guess it's a reboot now, is what I'm saying. The new version,
the new ones are different.
It's different. Yeah, they've done this like virus that
But it's a similar thing.
Genetic engineering.
Virus thing.
They just don't go on about dogs and cats. Like there's a whole. It's very specific.
Yeah. Well, what's going to be interesting with these new ones, so linking it back, so we haven't seen the new one. We don't know what happens. So this is just assumptions rather than anything spoiler-wise. But like in that very first James Franco R.I.P. Film, it's there's like in the background, there's like the Icarus space mission, isn't there, that kind of takes off, and they don't refer to it again. Yeah. But then I didn't realise, so I was like, oh, whatever. And then I was watching this film, and I was like, they kept referring interchangeably to Liberty One and Icarus spaceship, because Icarus was the nickname of the spaceship in the original '60s Planet of the Apes ship,
because it flew too close to the sun.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I imagine, I don't know, but then once they've done that, they're going to bring it in somehow, but I guess I wonder how.
It doesn't work as a film later though. Like it'd have to be a completely different thing.
No. But this is kind of where I guess it's kind of going to be quite interesting to see how creative it's going to be. And I don't want to get into stuff.
As long as it's got those themes, because it's like the themes of sort of like slavery / prejudice slash racism that runs through the Planet of the Apes movies. Is another creature that's lesser than you.
Yeah. It's an allegory, isn't it?
Worthless or not. The fourth one, because I watched that.
And how would you like it? That sort of thing.
That's full of that, and it's really good. It's quite effective, actually. The fourth one, it's better than I remember. Really good. And again, Roddy McDowall's the main character in that, and he is just goes from being scared because they need to keep it secret that he's smart, but then it gets split up, and it goes from him being scared to like the sort of.
Well, I want to watch this one, so don't spoil it. Don't spoil the 30-year-old.
There's elements in it that they took for the Dawn and the War of the Apes movies, definitely.
Yeah,
done. It's just done in a crazy 70s way. That's all.
What I will say about those Tim Burton films, just going back to that quickly though, that Tim Burton film, they do look good. I love the set design. I love the ship designs. I love all of that. What I hated is that it's all it is Planet of the Apes in name. There's nothing. There's absolutely zero connection. Even
it's not got any allegory. There's not much allegory to it really. It's just like, oh look, apes.
It's really kind of ham-fisted. And when you kind of look at someone like Tim Burton that can do Mars Attacks, because I watched that recently, because I fucking love that film, that's kind of really cheesy, really corny or whatever, and it's kind of playing with those kind of themes. But then for him to go and do something like Planet of the Apes, which he seems to have almost missed the point of it.
He took the money. He just took the money and did it.
I think so.
That was a work-for-hire job, that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit of a shame, really. That was
it doesn't even look like a Tim Burton movie. Imagine if he'd got to do a Planet of the Apes movie, but it designed it all, and it was just weird. Tim Burton.
A good Tim Burton.
Interesting, you know.
Well, I remember being quite excited. A good Tim Burton, Tim Burton, top form Tim Burton, doing a Planet of the Apes film. You kind of think, oh yeah, that's brilliant. That's going to be kind of.
I think Tim Burton, more so than a lot of other directors, has to be actually interested. I mean, I guess that's the same for any kind of work, but him even more so. I think he needs to have the sort of the creative control more. It's like Sleepy Hollow is brilliant, isn't it? Because he obviously had full control over that and was like, let's just make it like a Hammer movie. Yeah.
The worst thing that ever happened to Tim Burton is that he adapted Batman. Now, let me tell you why. It's obviously good, right? But he made it his own because it was so early on and no one gave a fuck about what he was doing. They just let him rip, right? But he got the idea that, I should be adapting things. Instead, if you look at all of his filmography, everything that's amazing is his original stuff and not the adaptations, even down to smaller things that people forget, like Big Fish and
Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd was hard work.
Horrible, but that's adapted from a thing, right?
But then is it though? Because it all depends, doesn't it? Because Sleepy Hollow's an adaptation. It's Mars Attacks is taken from source material,
but they're from very loose
a novel.
Things. It's not a specific story, is it? What's the novel?
Big Fish.
Big Fish. I don't really rate Big Fish though.
Oh, I love Big Fish.
Well, at the time, I remember
the last one I really liked of his was probably Sleepy Hollow. I really like Sleepy Hollow.
Well, the thing is, everyone shits on him, right? Did you make Edward Scissorhands? No. That's an all-time classic film that will last forever.
Batman, Beetlejuice, Edward, Sleepy Hollow, even Mars
I will say
that great movies, you know.
It's not out yet, so we don't know. But I will say, from what I've seen, that trailer of what we've seen of Beetlejuice, it looks to be hopefully top.
My problem with it is the same thing I'm going to say about everything. Always, they don't know how to shoot films nowadays. It doesn't look like a film. It doesn't, and when it's a sequel to that, because they don't light things for. It's ever since the 3D revolution, I think, because obviously 3D. You don't have to separate a person from the background because the 3D does it for you, right? But obviously, in old Hollywood and up into the 80s, somebody would put a light on somebody from there and behind, lots of fake lights, but then it would separate them from the background and it would give the perception of depth.
Yeah.
And they don't do that anymore. So when you've not got 3D to give you that perception of depth, it just doesn't. Everything seems flat.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be this. It seems to be this whole search for realism, doesn't it? It's like,
oh yeah, night, and bring back night for day, day for night,
yeah,
because like how cool is it in Mad Max when Mad Max Fury Road, when the nighttime scenes they shot it in day and then they just put it blue after, and it you know that it's not realistic, but it looks awesome, and you need to be able to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
There's a bit in that scene where I can't remember exactly what it is, whether it's someone's got a lighter or a torch or it's a muzzle flash or something, but the light in this blue world, dark world, is still orange, like when it needs to be. So like something flashes in one of their faces and they light up orange for like that second or whatever. And when they're shooting and stuff, the sparks light things orange. And it, like, to me, that's the attention to detail on it that like really makes it sing.
The only other person I think that's doing good is Greg Fraser, obviously who did Dune and the Batman and stuff. I think he knows how to light a film. But what's interesting about him is he uses darkness in a lot of the films with the help of the director as well as a storytelling tool. It's like that bit in the Batman, where the muzzle flashes light up in fighting, and then it like goes, that's brilliant. You know, things like that is very creative.
Is he doing Batman 2 then? The Batman 2? Is he doing
I hope so.
Oh, you mean the movie that's never being made?
The Batman is just so good. Oh my god, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
Really, really good movie.
So what are our expectations for this Kingdom of the Planets of the Apes then?
Well,
because I've gone up and down on it myself.
Now, certified fresh now.
Yeah?
It's going up. It's up to about 85%. That's
All right.
high.
Well,
Shocking,
people say, "Oh,
honestly.
I don't believe in Rotten Tomatoes." Blah, 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 blah. The thing is that's critics, and they watch a lot of films. So, to be honest, I still like to have a consensus from critics because they watch more films than me, and they get to have a barometer for quality.
I don't always agree with what those scores end up being.
No,
but as a first kind of I don't know, guidepost of where you should set your expectations, I think it's worthwhile.
A good film critics are a good thing to have because they watch all the crap. For us, people seem to forget that. Like people like Mark Mode, he goes to the cinema every day and watches like 4 movies, and he has to sit through like the new Despicable Me and this and that. And so when he says, "Oh, I like this one," I tend to think, well, maybe I'll give it a shot. I mean, he's not reviewed this Apes yet, but
there is, film critics. It's an interesting thing to be in because you're gonna get lambasted. You're gonna get folks that don't agree with you, but there's 2 ways of looking at it, isn't it? The worst film ever made is somebody's favorite film, and it doesn't mean that it's a good film. It just means that you kind of connect with it and you enjoy it, which leads us on. We got a really good question. I'll cover that in a bit, but then the best film ever made, you can be broadly disliked. So it's a job of a film critic is to try and cut through all of that and to give a bit of a more of an objective view.
It's trying to be objective.
The problem is with a lot of film critics now, not a lot, there are, you see it more, like I would say 10, 20 years ago.
Younger
when
ones
we were first,
very good,
No, this is a thing. Like, I think one of the people that's doing it really well is Ali Plum. Ali Plum's great. I like Ali Plum, generally kind of...
oh, yes.
He seems to have a really good opinion of things. But that's why I like things like Weekly Planet, because they're not film reviewers. They're not critics in the traditional sense.
They have their heads screwed on for what's good and bad. They in general, other than like James's mad hate of Ghostbusters.
Not my mad hate, James.
On that Weekly Planet, it's like okay. I mean, it wasn't the best movie ever, but it wasn't bad anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of criticism, do you remember Ratatouille? Movie? The critic in that is a perfect sort of breakdown of criticism and why it's important, and also why it is lambasted, and very, very good.
Mm.
So he's the food critic that hates
critic.
everything because and he's become jaded over time.
But he's not so much jaded. They're like, why is he so thin? He's a food critic.
He's in search of something he can't find.
Yeah,
yeah.
But he gets it, doesn't he?
But then there's that interesting. What was kind of really good about that, and it kind of goes back to what we're saying here, is that when he has that thing at the end, it's kind of it's the nostalgia, it's the memories, it's everything that brings back. So it's not necessarily the quality. There's not really any commentary. I mean, well, it's talking about a fucking Pixar film.
I know, but it's that awesome thing he says about like how he thought he didn't like Chef Gusteau's thing about anyone can cook, because he was like, no, only chefs can cook. But that he misunderstood is that anyone can cook, as in a rat who knows how to cook can cook.
Yeah,
you know, you've got to know how to do it, or have talent. But anyone can do it. You don't. It's not where you come from. It's the talent, and I think that's good. I like that movie. It's really good.
It's a good old thing.
We are all over the place.
Yeah, it's good.
Which is the way we do it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go see it. It's out today. Apes is out today. I'm going to go try and go see it if I don't die over the next few days. I think I'm looking more forward to it. Like when they said they were making it, I was like, oh no, you can't.
Yeah.
It's the Matt Reeves thing. Like, we need him, and he wasn't doing it. But by all accounts, this guy's done a sort of bang up job, and it's a lot riding on this for me personally, because he's doing The Legend of Zelda, and if he fucks that up, then we're gonna have to have words. I
mean, obviously, he might have had a good script as well with this, because the Maze Runner stuff that he's done before, they're the only movies he's done before. They were big hits, weren't they? But they're like young adults, not the best storylines. I've not seen them, so I can't really comment. But
I think I've seen the first one, and I quite liked it. So.
But he's obviously like got the visuals down, because I mean, everything I've seen from it just looks. Because it's hard to, when people think, oh, the CG looks rubbish, when they look at a YouTube video when it's all crushed and it's streaming at 720p or whatever. But obviously, I've worked on this movie now. Yeah, remember, I did some posters for it. Yeah. And they sent over some like full stills, like the 4K stuff, and like it's flawless. There's especially the water. They've gone. I guess with the Avatar stuff, because they learned a lot about water on Avatar, where water that's gone into this. So there's some really good water.
Yeah,
I will never forget sitting in the cinema because I think with they got such stupid names. Every single one of the Apes films has the wrong name.
I love it,
all of them. So Rise was the first one, right?
Yeah, and then Dawn, and then War. Yeah.
So I thought Rise was a good movie. That was a good movie, and it was interesting. And then Rise is where it really kicks off, right? I'll never forget sitting in the cinema, because you didn't know what to expect. Sitting in the cinema, and in the very first one, it's just like raining in the forest, and then it sort of pans around, and then you see them like all in the trees. Yeah. So it's a bunch of CG apes in CG rain, in CG trees probably, and I was like, "There's no fucking way that this isn't real."
In the woods, though, they did.
Yeah, probably the trees are real.
I think that was one of the first.
But that's even harder.
Well, they took the mocap outside, which they were like, you can't do that. It's got to be in the volume thing.
You're right, because I've actually seen them with the suits on in the thing. But there's rain coming onto this fake. It's insane. And what year was that? That was
2014.
That's ages ago.
They obviously, by doing that, going out into the rain and into the woods, they have reference, and they probably had a model. I would have thought a model ape. They stick that, and they can say, "Oh, look, that's what it looks like in this environment," and then they've got that reference, and that's when the volume stuff falls flat, because they don't have real world reference, and your brain just can tell. And I think that's the key. So if this one is outside, and they're filming a lot of it outside, that'll go a long way.
Well, that's where those
helping with it. I think.
That's where those Hobbit films fell down for me, because you've got no.
It's all in a sound
it's like that uncanny valley, and you're like, your kind of brain's going to explode. It doesn't, and it looks kind of crap. And
They
I
made a
think-
really weird decision to make all the orcs CG in those Hobbit movies. Remember, like,
Yeah,
the baddies were all
Totally
computer-
bizarre.
I'm like, but the makeup on the other ones was like the best makeup ever, and so realistic and grisly and horrible.
it's bizarre, isn't it?
Is the only reason they did
that?
that because that like everyone was
was
going to
big?
want to be paid? No, they were going to want to be paid because for the Lord of the Rings, no one knew what they were doing.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure they would have wanted actual money when they brought the entire production back to New Zealand, right?
Well, they could have had
did you
at
see
least
that-
the main baddie be like the Lurtz guy or
100%.
whatever from the old movies.
There's an interview going around with Orlando Bloom at the minute. Did you see how much he got paid for that trilogy, for the whole trilogy? He got $170,000 for all three films. That was how much he earned.
Crazy.
Yeah. So that's bonkers. That's like
Set his
probably would have
career
got
off,
more
though,
than
'cause
that.
he didn't have anything before that. Though, did he?
no. But when you look at it, when you like look in hindsight now of how much these kind of things like actors are paid. But going back to
And they lived there for like what 2 years, like lived in New
Yeah.
Zealand and stuff.
2 years of his life for that. I mean, it's not bad money. I'm not gonna,
Certainly
adjusted for
set his
inflation. It's
career
probably-
off, didn't it?
Yeah. Wes Ball. So yeah, Wes Ball that's done this Planet of the Apes. I was just looking. Seems to be a big Star Trek fan, which is
Ooh.
interesting.
I like him. He retweeted my
He
post.
seems to very much be interested in things like there was a bit of stuff with because obviously now he's on the promo trail for this, and they're asking him about Zelda and stuff, and his responses they give me hope. Like he seems to really
He's the same
like
age
it
as
and
us, isn't he? He's like 40.
yeah,
right?
around there. He look like when you look at him as a picture of him as a director, you're like, oh, he's really young, which means that he's actually our age. He's old. It's just because all directors are like 65 in our mind,
Yeah.
Everyone forgets Steven Spielberg was 25 when he did Jaws.
But he looked 67.
Shit. He looked like 25 though. You see that? Have you seen that video where he didn't get the Oscar? It's him and Friedkin and a few others in a room, and it is so funny because he doesn't get it, and then like Friedkin's just like, "What the fuck is wrong with these people?" Friedkin was good, cool dude.
Yeah.
Director of The Exorcist.
Yeah, mental case, absolute mental case.
So we all going to try and watch this new Apes and then talk about it eventually.
Yeah, but I want you
Oh, it's
to watch the third one, James, and I want you to watch the fourth one, because the fourth one is groovy as well. It's proper mental. It's all filmed in like a weird sort of 70s complex. So it's like it's supposed to be the future, but it's just like some sort of high rise in the 70s. And they've just got loads of apes running around.
Okay.
Love it.
Right. Well, I'll try and do that. I was going to say something about just the new Apes films for me have been quite interesting because they're films that I've not been asked about seeing, and like when you see the trailer, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. But then you watch it, and you're like, actually, that's fucking good.
Oh, it's
That's really
like
good.
we rewatched the new trilogy a few weeks ago when I was doing this work, and like Kate, she was bawling at the end of the third one because Caesar's. When you watch them compressed together like that, the sort of character arc he's got, oh god, he's good.
Yeah,
and then
it's really
Cobra,
very good.
when Cobra's haunting him in the third one, and he like sees him in the fire and stuff,
yeah.
it's like gets you. It's like really, oh bloody hell.
Should we do a quick couple of questions?
Yeah, go on then.
Do it.
So this is kind of linking back to what we were talking about earlier. So Pastradal has asked on YouTube, another great episode, gentlemen. Since you guys are talking about what great movies to revisit, I want to ask you, is there a favorite terrible movie that you enjoy? So his personal favorite is The Room by Tommy Wiseau. I've never actually seen The Room.
Oh, don't.
Have you guys got a favorite terrible
good.
movie?
What that's actually just
God.
bad, but you enjoy it because it's bad.
Yeah, I guess what I'll kind of caveat this is with we don't want to do is go a film is shit. I guess what would generally be perceived as a bad film that you really enjoy. So like I think using a film like The Room is a good example of what is perceived.
So
as
it's technically bad because obviously,
Technically
like
bad.
I really like Flash Gordon. People would say that's a hokey, rubbish, cheap movie, but it's not. It's an expensive, big movie that's well made. So it's just different to how they make movies now.
That's the open channel bingo. There's Flash Gordon for today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Star Trek 5.
Star Trek 5. Is
Yeah,
that considered one of the bad ones?
It's considered the worst Star Trek movie. It's definitely a lot better than the Next Generation ones and the Kelvin ones, in my opinion. But I can see why people don't like it, because they didn't have any money for special effects. They didn't use ILM for the special effects, so they look like crap. They couldn't do the ending right. Shatner was in charge, and it was like an ego. It was just mad. He's like climbing mountains and stuff. But it's really good. Still,
is that where he's just at the end? He just screams at the like.
They go to meet God. They go to meet God, right? Because Spock's half brother's like, I've been sent a message from God. He's in the center of the galaxy. We've got to go there and take him. And they get there, and God's like, there's this big giant floating head. Are you welcome, my children? I shall go on your spaceship and spread my word across the galaxy. And then Captain Kirk's just like, excuse me, I have a question. What's God need with a starship? And then it turns out he's not really God. He's a big evil alien that they have to blow up. But they just it's a bit patchy. It's not.
I think
the concept's great, and it's just executed not very well. So I love it because the characters are there and they get the characters right. But like in terms of like actual quality filmmaking, it's not as good or as fully rounded as some of the other Star Trek movies.
From your description, I want to watch it.
It's hilarious.
It was one of my. It's got the two best bits out of all of them, I think. Like watching them.
The campfire.
That's the best scene in any of the Star Trek TOS films or whatever. I mean, brilliant. I think it's interesting watching a series, and it applies to the Apes and even Mad Max as well, which I've watched the series of recently, but more so with Trek and probably Apes, where I have no concept before going in where they sit in people's like rankings or minds or whatever, right? Did they like this one? Did they hate this one? You usually know the first one's the best or whatever, or Wrath of Khan in the case of Star Trek. But I like just going through them and being like, yeah, I get it. Shut the fuck up, Matthew Ferguson, and don't tell me about it, because I'm just going to watch it, like go in cold. Oh, okay, it's the whale one. Oh, it's the one where they go camping for no apparent reason. And yeah, it's discovering those things on your own and then being told at the end that like, oh, this is the one people hate. I was like, oh, yeah.
I've never hated 5. I like it, but I can see why people didn't like it, because coming off the back of the last 3, Khan, Search for Spock, and the Whales, that they are like a really solid film trilogy with a really good character arc for Spock and Captain Kirk, and then this one is just its own weird thing. So people are like, huh? That's I can understand, but I still like it.
And cool. I don't have the brain capacity to think of an answer for this. I can't get it.
Mine's more rats. I would just
Is that a poorly made? I thought it was good.
It was
it's
one of the
lesser Kevin Smith, isn't it? It's lesser Kevin Smith.
It's kind of not. I think it kind of underperformed commercially.
It hasn't held up
critically
as well as Chasing Amy and Clerks and even Dogma. I think is better.
But I really enjoyed it. I think there was another one, but I can't remember off the top of my head what it is.
The Stan Lee bit's good in Mallrats, though. Crazy Stan Lee cameo.
That's the thing about Kevin Smith. He's a really good writer. He has good ideas. He has good sentiment. He just has to want to put that in his movie that he's currently making.
The stuff can go too juvenile for me sometimes.
Well, that's what I mean. But if you look at like Clerks 2, probably like I haven't seen 3 yet, but I understand there's some
really
pretty
good stuff in it. But then
hard hitting
stuff.
Also
got like this thing with the donkey, and it's just like
it's
extremely juvenile.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I've not got a problem with that. I'm just saying it's just
No,
yeah. He sort of tries to ease that tension, I guess, with the goofy stuff, right? Of like even Chasing Amy, it would be his most grown up and probably best film.
Yeah,
definitely.
Because there's pretty heavy shit in that. And I remember when I was younger, I was like, this isn't as good as like Mallrats and that, because it just didn't. I'm like, where's the farts? Like, where's Jay and Silent Bob?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Gets you when you're a bit older than when you're in your 20s.
That's it. When you can actually understand what the fuck they're on about.
Cool. Is there anything else we want to cover off today? I'm going to let you slowly die in the corner.
I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
I may never return. All right. And until then, we'll be back next week. And that's the end of it. Bye-bye.
That's the end of it. Bye.
That's the end of it.